different. For those of you just joining on the interwebs, I'm Jason Karsh, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at the Stellar Development Foundation. And joining me today are we were reflecting partners who were kicking off relationships this year, one with Robinson and Wormhole, and Shiv and Boundless. I'll let them introduce themselves and each of their companies. But we're going to talk today about privacy and openness, how they coexist, and how we kind of see the evolution of these primitives in a multi-chain world. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. We're going to try to make privacy as engaging as possible today. I know it's maybe not I haven't looked at all the other topics, but I think the one before was fun and exciting, so we're going to try to make privacy exciting. But my name's Robinson, one of the co-founders of Wormhole. Essentially what we do is we connect blockchains. So we enable blockchains to communicate with one another. It's nothing new, this concept of interoperability. We see it in everyday life. Banks today need to be interoperable. You need to be able to wire money between the banks. Healthcare system, you need to be able to share data. We do the same thing, but for systems that just can't speak to one another. And once you're able to do that, you can do things like send tokens, which I'm assuming most of you, if you have used anything on chain, are probably using it for that application. So obviously, we're really excited to be here. We're working on our integration with Stellar to make Stellar more interoperable. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So my name is Shiv. I'm the CEO of Boundless. Boundless is a universal ZK protocol, zero-knowledge cryptography, which allows blockchains to scale, to build privacy-based solutions, helps interop. In a lot of ways, it's going to be a part and parcel of everything that everyone does in Web3 as the years go by. Boundless aims to provide secure and cheap access to ZK in the context of apps, devs, every chain, everywhere that people build and want to use secure applications on Web3. We've been live on mainnet for the past 3-ish months, so relatively newer project. ZK has been around even before AI, to be honest, as a subject of study. ZK has been around blockchains, I want to say, for like 4 or 5 years. But now, I would say, truly, it's also a moment for ZK. It's also a very opportune moment when we're talking about privacy and all of this and how ZK plays into that. So we're going to have like a really lively conversation. But I did say I wanted to keep all my thoughts private, but I guess that doesn't work with the interwebs.
We're going to force them out. It's a wrench attack. That joke did not play super well in the room. All right, so Shiv, well, let's start with you. I think actually ZK, roll-ups, primitives, privacy on-chain. Can you give us a few definitions for those who are kind of new to the topic so we can kind of get our bearings?
Yeah, so obviously when blockchains, so for me, if I wanted to like really simplify for an audience what a blockchain is, and a lot of people do come out with wrenches when I say this, but it does form a easier picture in people's heads, is a blockchain is basically just a ledger or a database, right? So you have one database where you like keep all this information, except you don't get to control it, you don't get to reverse it, you don't get to change information willy-nilly, and it's extremely hardened, secure. That's what Stellar is, that's what all the other L1s are. But as a trade-off for that, you do sort of have to go slower. So your transaction throughput goes down as you like gain in security and so on, and that gives rise to lots of different architectures as well as like design patterns of how do you go around that. So L2s are like a common reference. Now, what is an L2? Of course, it's just like another sort of chain that like rolls up into the L1. So think of, a great example is when we're talking about interop and so on in the Web 2 world, people use PayPal. And for whatever reason, PayPal seems to be way faster than you transferring money from one bank to another. Why is that? PayPal kind of takes the risk. They say, oh, there's like a 5% fraud here, so I'm going to do this, offer a bunch of like UX benefits and so on, send you a credit card, and that's how I make my money. So they build off top of that. So PayPal is kind of a roll-up to the financial ecosystem, if that's an image that like helps people. And zero-knowledge cryptography, actually what it does fundamentally is it's a compression system. So let's say you have a computation. Let's say you're trying to find some 40 trillion digit number and prove that it's a prime number and it takes like 2 hours on your GPU. you can actually run it within the context of a ZK VM. So when I say VM, I mean a virtual machine. So you're running a little container and you run your program inside of that. And since you're running it inside of that, it kind of logs all the steps that you're taking, and you can get a proof that is really, really small, like a few bytes that you can use on chain. Obviously, the biggest issue on chain is you don't have a lot of space. And you've just compressed a calculation that you probably can't afford on chain, done it off chain and gotten a proof. And instead of like every node in a L1 or an L2, running the same computation to show that I got the same answer, we all got the same answer, so the answer is correct, you can just verify the proof. And some of the work that we've done with Stellar, of course, is like launching a verifier on Stellar and like all the other chains and so on. So you can verify these proofs. So any computation off chain can be represented on chain now, which is a huge advantage. So you can use Rust, you can write any kind of program. You don't need to learn Solidity or what have you. And expressibility comes in as well. One of the things that we always dream of is getting every engineer in the world to be Web3 native. I read some report, I think it was A16Z, but like maybe one of the major VCs who talked about how many devs are full-time in Web3. It's an astonishingly low number. A lot of people are part-timing, right? So how do you actually like onboard people? You have to make the DevX compatible with the patterns that they are familiar with. ZK VMs are a path to doing that. That also allows all the chains to scale infinitely. Have much more standard patterns when it comes to rollups, extensions, privacy pools, all of that as well. The less code you have to like shove into your L1 and L2, the easier it is to keep it secure. And that's an important design pattern as well. Like you don't want to obviously every chain wants to offer its users, customers, lots and lots of fancy things. Every engineer will tell you like the more bells and whistles you add, the more I have to maintain, the more shit can go wrong. And then, Bob's your uncle. It's way better to have a much more simplistic system and distribute the risk properly. Of course, ZK VMs are also post-quantum if you use certain kind of ZK. So it's very future secure as well. So lots of good things going in for ZK. If anyone in the interweb has a business background, the line that actually gets them is AI is the sword where you are charging ahead, and ZK is the shield. Because if AI is run within a ZK context, you can prove what happened. Imagine asking Alexa or someone to be like, hey, buy me a something, and it ends up buying you a Toyota car. You're like, that's not what I told you to do. Now, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to go to insurance or call them and tell them that that's not what I did? Like, your AI is screwed up. If it's run inside a ZK context, you can actually audit what happened and say like, hey, that wasn't my input. So it's clearly barfed. So that's the future that we're slowly charging towards, but our focus right now are things like rollups, interop, privacy, and following that, I think, is stuff like AI and so on and so forth. Right, that was a really long answer.
I think that was actually a great basis for folks in the room and folks watching just to think about the primitives. I really like, as a marketer, I like the analogies to PayPal and how they take the risk as a L2 on the financial system. But going to this interoperability piece, I think that we believe at Stellar, and this may be sort of strange for no one to believe this, but we believe in a multi-chain world. We believe in interoperability. We think that you shouldn't have to trap people in to give them good services. They should be able to use services that are built by whoever permissionlessly or pseudo-permissionlessly anywhere they want. So from Wormhole's perspective, like how do you think about the interoperability and openness of access? Where does privacy come in from your perspective? Is it something asked for by all the chains? Do some chains have it? How do you think about it?
Yeah, I think I like to zoom out a little bit and think about privacy from a historical context first, and then maybe get into Wormhole. So crypto is interesting because there's a lot of strong opinions in the space, and I think privacy in crypto used to be something that was binary. What do I mean by that? It was, you had things like Tornado Cash, Monero, et cetera, that was like full privacy, everything, and it was almost a school of thought, right? It was, I want everything to be private. People, when crypto actually, kind of first came on the scene in Bitcoin, people actually thought a lot of it was all private because they thought encrypted, and they didn't actually realize that, no, it's actually everything's transparent. Now we're kind of moving to the world, what I call, it's like you can selectively disclose what type of things, what type of information you want to do. And I oftentimes think about this like meta example. It's like what I call account full versus account less. So today, when you use Spotify, you use Instagram or these applications, you're kind of signing in and accessing the data that they have, and being able to obviously then you have your logic for whatever application you're using, but they ultimately own all of that. Crypto, the paradigm is that you own the data, and then you approach an application. It has its core logic. It could be a DeFi application or whatnot, and a lot of it today is you're kind of giving everything. And I think what's interesting about ZK, and I'll probably use more Bosch analogies that Shiv has to keep me honest for, but I think what's interesting about ZK and what it unlocks from a privacy perspective is you're able to kind of be selective about these things. And the ZK analogy I use as it pertains to privacy, obviously there's a lot of applications and specifically for interop as well, most of us are probably familiar with Where's Waldo. So if you open up a Where's Waldo book, let's say you have a piece of cardboard and you cut out a small circle. In that circle, if I'm looking at that page, I can see Where's Waldo. So I could say, okay, you've proven to me that you know where Waldo is. But what I don't know is like the geographical details, everything about like where on the page, who he's by, et cetera, et cetera. So I think ZK is powerful for privacy in that way because you're able to selectively kind of share this various information. And so now I think we're kind of moving to the era where you can have your cake and eat it too, where it helps give you a better open and permissionless system. So now I can send money anywhere in the world. And be selective about like, hey, I have KYC'd via X, Y, and Z platform, kind of prove that, and then be able to access DeFi and do whatever I need to do. So I think we've kind of gone from a binary approach to a have your cake and eat it too, and we're just being a little bit more practical about things. For Wormhole in particular, we're a dev platform, right? So we build a lot of applications on top ourselves. Our kind of main use case is asset transfer. We've been doing it for 5 years. When we first started, people were sending crypto punks between chains, Bored Apes, if anyone remembers that. Now it's a lot of stable coins, a lot of network tokens, et cetera. But you can do things like build privacy-preserving bridges. Today, Wormhole, as it stands, is completely open, completely permissionless. If once we connect to Stellar, let's say there's an application on Stellar and it wants to receive the USDC native to Stellar, but that user has USDT on Solana, we can handle that routing in the background. But that's all open. That's all permissionless. If you wanted to build an application that did that routing but made it private, you could do that, build it on top with ZK, likely boundless, et cetera. So I see this as ZK as an unlock to having a better experience, and obviously we'll probably get into this later, but more adoption from serious players like institutions, et cetera.
I think that the other sort of payment analogy that I think about a lot is it would be crazy to, when you swipe your credit card to buy a cappuccino, that the vendor can see your entire transaction history and your bank account balance. So shielded transactions are naturally in every financial system, and payments that are not cash, even cash, is by default private. When you think about SDF, our stance is that blockchain should be open and transparent, and that openness is so critical, yet we think that privacy is actually just a subset of configurability. And it's able to configure transactions and assets in a way that match the use case. I say that to vaguely ask you this very open-ended question. How do Boundless and Wormhole think about that interplay?
I think it's so I was talking to some of the SDF product folks yesterday as well. Like when someone talks about privacy, it's important to understand, well, what's the context here? There's retail privacy and there's institutional privacy. They're not the same thing. Retail privacy is about securing your own personal information, PII. So things like KYC or what information you send online or what do you show, like you're going into a bar, you show your driver's license. So now the bouncer at the bar knows your name, full name, color of your eyes, your address, like
organ donor, if you are.
If you are, I am. It's unnecessary, right? Like we're giving out all this information. That's personal privacy that is very valuable because I think all of us are pretty tired of hearing that our data has been lost to North Korean hackers or Russian hackers or whatever. At this point, they have all my information. Like I don't. might as well sell it to them directly.
Very enterprising, very, very entrepreneurial of you.
100%. Gotta make that money. So that's personal privacy, and that's what's talked about on Twitter. Let's be very honest. When people talk about like privacy, that's really what they're talking about. Institutions are a completely different animal, right? So they're talking about compliance. Institutions have to be in two relationships at the same time. I help build compliance solutions for Coinbase, helping them launch in like new countries and so on. It's probably the worst job I've ever had. Sorry, Coinbase, Brian. You are in a relationship with the customer because you're handling their personal information, but you're also in a relationship with the government entity who forces you to hold data. So when we as a industry are like, oh, let's move forward on privacy, and then point fingers, or that they got hacked, they're forced to collect information. They're not incentivized to, because like I'm just going to do the bare minimum in security because I don't make money off of this. And that's where like things fall apart. The unique thing about like blockchains is it allows you to be, like you said, configurable in what you share, what you don't share, and also create a one-stop reusable honeypot everywhere. So I can do compliance once. So let's say I am KYC'd with Coinbase. Then if I go on OKX or on Binance, I should be able to show them that like, hey, I've already been KYC'd, stop collecting my information. So I don't need to repeatedly upload my information. And what do you give them to show that like I've already done my KYC? A ZK proof that they can like query and be like, so the interesting thing that I think Robinson mentioned, I should have mentioned as well, is like the proof can do selective disclosure. And you can sort of like query it for information. Was this person born before 1995 or something, whatever is the relevant number? You can get that kind of selective information, and that's super useful. That's really the way forward in getting personal privacy done, as well as privacy in an institutional context. And then there is, of course, like you said, like seeing all your transactions. That requires a bunch of interesting solutions that actually, to be honest, the three teams here need to work on to provide institutions a kind of like a harness that they can use to shield transactions properly. So it's not so easy, for example, like you said, like I bought a thing and now you know every single thing that I've done and every NFT that I own, and you can like just grok my entire history. You want to shield to some extent for sure. Yeah, that future is really coming along. But even in that case, the coffee instance, the bank knows, the government knows. So there are trade-offs in like where you implement the shield. And the unique openness of blockchains is you can see who is implementing the shield. That is more important. You have no idea what the bank is doing to shield your information, but I for sure know what the L1 is doing because I can see the code. Maybe I can't read the code. Maybe I call someone who does and be like, hey man, here's like $2,000. Could you like please look at the code and tell me, is my information secure? Should I trust it? Auditors and also there's security in numbers. So if a bunch of like exchanges are using it, it's like kind of secure because they must have done like their homework and so on. So the openness of blockchains is actually in verifying the information as well as the verifiability of the logic itself, which is why like open source is so important as well.
Maybe just to finish, and answer the specific question of us three working together, it actually provides this really unique stack that does give retail and institutions the ability to, mainly institutions, adopt payments and things on chain at scale. And what I mean by that is like quite simply at a high level, Stellar, settlement, computation, and then once you have that proof of something that's happened, we shuttle it around. And so you in that world, Stellar now opens itself up to take payments from any user coming from any blockchain, right? Any stable coin, and it can be then settled on Stellar in whatever fashion, whatever token is native to Stellar, and it can be done in a privacy-preserving way. Obviously, there's some privacy-specific tools I know you guys are working on as well that I think are needed here. But in theory, this full stack can provide that ideal outcome.
I like that point also that it's about the L1 playing nicely with sort of application layers on top of it before it gets to a consumer, rather than an omnibus L1 that kind of slows down and tries to do too much and can't be an expert in anything. Jack of all trades, master of none. Okay, here's a read out loud question. How might privacy be a catalyst to further adoption for both institutions and everyday users? Has openness with the lack of privacy been a barrier?
I can maybe start. And Wormhole works. I'll talk maybe about institutions in particular. Wormhole works with a lot of institutions. I know Stellar does as well. We have been around for about 5 years, and our core role is we all hear about tokenization, right? BlackRock, Apollo, et cetera. They're all tokenizing assets on chain. We could have a whole separate talk about tokenization, but let's just say that they think it's valuable. There's a reason they're doing it. We just shuttle the assets between all the blockchains. I'm saying it very simply. Obviously, it's very complex, has a lot of compliance, et cetera. So we've had to work with these institutions for quite some time and go through all their kind of rigorous practices, if you will. I think kind of in parallel, we're going through what I call the practical era of crypto. And so what the practical era is to me is second guessing a lot of assumptions we've had for a long time. So first one is decentralization, and this might be somewhat controversial, but crypto started, cypherpunk ethos, max decentralization, thousands and thousands of validators all across geographically distributed, et cetera, et cetera. That is great. I think we still need that. That is ideal. However, I think institutions today are now saying, and we have these conversations, how decentralized do things need to be? For instance, there are chains now that are 10, 12, 19, 20, 25 validators. And talking to BlackRock specifically, Wormhole secured by 19 validators. They love the model because they say these validators are fully doxxed, and I can sue them if they do something wrong. And that really stood out to me because in my mind, I just have this, I'm programmed to think, crypto, max decentralization, permissionless validator sets, proof of stake, et cetera, et cetera. And so I started questioning that assumption maybe a year and a half ago, and now we've started to see, Hyperliquid, I don't know how many, 13, 15 validators, I don't keep track, Circle, some of these other bigger or other chains have these smaller validator sets. So I think that's like first thing we're kind of questioning right now, and that I think institutions are kind of making a decision for us, and we got to decide if we want to push back or not. I think the second thing, and I won't spend as much time on this because it's way out of the scope, is governance. I think governance is this concept in crypto where for a while we've everything has to be voted on by token holders. This is how things are done. This is decentralization. Governance is definitely the end game we want to get there, but governance today it's not great. The protocols that rely on max decentralization via governance, it is very hard to stay competitive. I deal with this today. We have governance, but what decisions do we push to the DAO, and what decisions do we make? It is very, very hard for me to push critical business decisions, et cetera, to the token holders. And honestly, if I were them, I would trust the team the most that's thinking about these things and whatnot. So there's from an institutional adoption perspective, there's a second thing. And then I think the third thing is privacy. I think I was having a good conversation last night with some of the Stellar folks at dinner talking about permissionless open protocols. Stellar did something really cool with rallying around a payments consortium with let's all use the same payment metadata, et cetera. I think Monad was involved, Stellar, Sui, some other chains. And I didn't actually realize this, but there's kind of this open permissionless chains thing going on, what we've all probably known if you've been in the space for a while. And now there's not the state sponsored, but big corporation sponsored chains, right? You have and we work with them all. So no shade, I'm not saying there's anything right, but you have your Base, your Robinhood, your Circle, et cetera. And they're kind of making these decisions that I think are more geared towards institutional adoption. The reason I'm saying all this is coming full circle. Smaller validator sets, a lot of control on what they build, the decisions that they have. It's not going to governance, et cetera. And so they're also building a lot of these privacy products. And so I think that I've been around for a while to remember when everyone said institutions were coming in 2022. Everyone's like, oh my God, everyone's adopting crypto, or all these institutions are adopting it, et cetera. And then FTX happened, it set us back maybe 2 years. But now, undeniably, institutions are here. You see transactions on chain, RWAs over 30 billion on chain. Bank of America is telling all of us to have 4% of our crypto portfolios. And so it's here. But I think one of the biggest blockers now is not settlement, not throughput. Sorry, I'll get to the point. It's privacy. And I think that when I talk to JP Morgan, they have their own chain. They have their own private chain. And they're just going to settle all these things in their own private chain until they feel like these public chains have enough of the infrastructure to be able to do things out in public. And so when I think about the next leg up of institutional adoption, and sorry to be so long-winded, but I do think privacy is key to that for all the reasons we've talked up here.
And I think that brings up a point that we talk about a lot, which is with governments and institutions, they are bound by law, they are bound by rules, and I think there's this crypto ethos of code is law. But the great example that we give sometimes is, let's say you were to tokenize the deed to your grandma's house on a chain where code is law and it's completely open and permissionless, no configurability for the rights and jurisdictional rights of the deed holder, and then the Lazarus Group in North Korea steal grandma's house deed. It's actually not real then. It blows up the whole idea that that would be at all a token that could be upheld, because the US government's not going to allow the North Koreans to move into grandma's house. It won't enforce it. So I think this idea of challenging primitives and focusing on how to bring institutions in is huge. And so, Shiv, I guess when you think about implementing privacy that institutions in particular want, do you have a sense of like what are they asking for, and what are the core? Earlier today you were mentioning that there's a whole list of all the fancy bells and whistles that you could be building, but then there's sometimes key requirements. What are those key requirements?
Yeah, I mean, like you spelled out the first one really clearly, which is like adherence to government regulations, right? Like there are two things that businesses need to do. One is be legal. The other one is make money. So if you get in the way of either one of these conversations, the friction to adoption is too much. One thing I did mention is like Boundless is relatively new. We're working with a lot of projects that have like Wormhole is a good example. It has a pre-existing product that it's like working. I would love for Wormhole to drop all its projects and just focus on me and ZK. But I know that that's not going to happen. They have a business to run. They're going to maybe invest like 2-3 engineers. Like I can expect like maybe 20 weeks of work max, right? Like from them. Similarly, JP Morgan is not sitting around going, oh, I can't wait for these guys to come and tell me what to do in blockchain. They have like a multi-trillion business.
And their team is actually huge, like their blockchain team.
Yeah, and they are a multinational corporation settling trades across the planet, facilitating, they're the OG Wormhole, like I would say, like, moving money around. And we show up to them and we're like, yeah, change everything about what you're doing. Don't worry about it. And so they're not going to accept that conversation. So regulations, for whatever reason, may look and sound stupid, and they are sometimes. They don't make sense to us. But there was a context within which it did make sense. And now, if you want to go and start a revolution, you can, but revolutions take time. Or you can just shut up, pull up your sleeves and get to work, and like make sure whatever you're building adheres to these regulations. The other one is profitability. Banks aren't trying to, institutions aren't getting into crypto because they're feeling it. They're like, yeah, power to the masses. No, it's power to the bottom line. The reason why they want to move to crypto is moving assets on crypto is cheaper. Let's not bullshit ourselves here. That's why they're here. We have to make sure we deliver value to them with minimal disruption to their systems. That means understanding what their systems do, not judging them. Amazon, I used to work at Amazon, and customer obsession means something. Like you have to go and talk to them and be like, well, how does it operate? And it'll blow your mind that all of this shit was written in 1995, and some of it is written in Fortran, but it works. They don't want to touch it. Like there are reasons for it, because they can. Some of it has been sort of formally verified, and cost of formal verification is too high. They want like change stuff. There's lots of these very, very interesting nitty-gritties where they will get stuck. We have to hold their hand step by step and get them over the line. I think I was mentioning this to some folks today as well. Like you get one big player to move, and they start cutting their cost of operations by like 20%, and all of a sudden everybody starts rushing towards that. So we have to make sure that like we create the incentives for people to move, and we can actually deliver on those incentives as well. I think the big failure of blockchain would be if we get all of these players over and then they go like, yeah, nothing changed. Like, it's still a hassle. Maybe like moving to blockchains made my cost of operations go down, but now I need a lot more human resources to keep that up, and that kind of didn't balance out. There's like lots of real concerns that we need to like manage, and that is only going to come from like a concerted effort of like a bunch of folks like us who are incentivized to get them on board, right? So if I'm delivering a lot of ZK proofs, Boundless is doing well. If there's a lot of money moving around, Wormhole is doing well. If a lot of things settle on Stellar ecosystem is doing well. So we are incentivized to do this right. The last thing we should do is rush into it and just sort of like plant a flag and be like, everything's going to be awesome, but rather like go with a lot of humility towards a company or companies that have been operating at a global scale for a large period of time, and modernize them slowly, one use case at a time. And then you'll see like rapid acceleration.
Just a quick add-on for like maybe the retail specific focus or user specific focus. And this is like two examples that we went through recently. I think one is both have to do with ZK. One maybe more on privacy or login credentials. We worked with the blockchain, and they I won't name names, but they created something called ZK Login. It was great. Very similar idea to what we're talking about today. You can kind of just log in with your proof of credentials. You don't need to enter your information every time. We had a very large airdrop, and it worked for everyone, but the ZK login for the particular blockchain, it broke. There was about, I don't remember the exact number, I think it was like 13,000 users that couldn't access their airdrop because they had this ZK login feature that wasn't backwards compatible to the wallets we were using. And so like it's just a prime, and then everyone was reaching out to me. I was glorified support for a long time, was reaching out talking about this issue, and they don't care about ZK login at all. They wish they never used it. They just wanted to use the wallet and get the tokens. And so if you provide if you don't provide a par or better experience, you're not going to. And I think a lot of people in crypto do that. They're like, oh, you don't understand. It's like technically more sound, or it's more decentralized, so like you should use it. But it doesn't have any actual applications. You're going to get forgotten about. And from our business as well, ZK is really good for verifying transfers between chains. Today I talked about these 19 validators. Google Cloud is one, Figment, these big validator companies. We have 19 that need to come to consensus on 13 out of 19 that need to come to consensus on everything. It is the most secure cross-chain attestation method at scale today. However, it is not more trustless than a ZK proof. It is still, at the end of the day, 13 companies that could, in theory, collude, right? They could get together and say, we're gonna rug the protocol. And why ZK is so great is because it pushes you farther down that trustless spectrum. What do I mean by trustless? Instead of trusting an individual, instead of trusting an entity, you're quite literally trusting math. And that is a much better place than trusting entities. I mean, some of these transfer protocols have like 2 parties, but no shade here, but even less than that. So you're doing all this stuff and you're trusting 2 entities. And while that benefit is so great, and we've been working on ZK for a long time, unless, and Shiv can tell me the latest benchmarking stats, I don't know them, but unless it is faster and cheaper and more scaled, meaning like connected to more chains, it is cheaper for the user and it is faster, we are going to make the business decision to adopt it. And it's so like we're a DeFi protocol, or we build DeFi protocols, we're thinking this way. To Shiv's point, these enterprises are absolutely thinking this way. So I think that's the biggest blocker. I think not even just for privacy, but for crypto stuff in general, is like selling things based on this ethos that, oh, it's better, it's more decentralized, X, Y, and Z. Again, if there's any theme of the talk, it's privacy, but it's practical. We're moving into the practical era of crypto. Like, what are you doing to enhance my bottom line?
So speaking of that practical era, if you had to list rapid fire, I'm going to do 2 rapid fire questions. What are the biggest blockers to privacy being widely adopted within Web3? We'll start with you, Shiv.
User experience.
User experience. Okay.
I can't. Yeah, that was a good one. I mean, but if anything,
You can just say UX.
Yeah,
Sounds
UX. I was gonna give a long answer that just came back to UX. Yeah, but I don't like saying UX because I think in crypto people for the past couple of years have blamed so much of the lack of adoption on UX. It's such a scapegoat type thing, but I do think privacy, also interoperability, are like keys to making UX better. We go back to thinking even about if I want to do something on Stellar, but I have a stablecoin from another blockchain, I literally can't. Like if you went to Polymarket, I'm not sure what it's like now, and let's say a Polymarket I think is on Polygon today, could be, I don't know anything, but who knows? It could be on multiple blockchains in the future. You literally need USDC, and again, it could be changed now from Polygon. But like, if any of you would do stuff on chain, like how many of you guys have USDC on Polygon? I don't. Great chain, I don't use it personally. We can UX, like interop helps you do all that in the background where you swap, et cetera, add privacy to that, it gets even better. So it really is UX, but I feel bad making it the scapegoat.
So UX, you just made it longer.
Yeah, I did the whole thing.
I want to thank both of you. So let's give a round of applause to this great panel. And we're going to take a selfie with the audience. Stand up, we're going to take a selfie. Okay. Here, I'm going to stand on the outside so I can get it. And we're going to do everyone smile. 3, 2, 1. And everyone cheer. This is a video. Thank you so much. And we'll be back with another conference, or another panel.
Yeah, I was just going to say, everyone, we've got tacos and snacks downstairs. We'll be back in like 30 minutes with our next